Most people assume water will always come out of the tap. Every morning, millions of people wake up, turn the handle, and expect clean running water without even thinking about it. It feels permanent, automatic, untouchable. But the reality is far more fragile than most people realize. Modern cities depend on massive systems working perfectly every single day. Reservoirs, treatment plants, electrical grids, pumping stations, underground pipes, chemical processing facilities, transportation systems. And when even one part of that chain starts to fail, entire communities can suddenly find themselves facing something most people never seriously think about: running out of water. Over the last several years, cities around the world have experienced droughts, water restrictions, contamination scares, and infrastructure failures that expose just how vulnerable modern water systems really are. And for many families, these events became a wake-up call. Because once water stops flowing, almost everything else in daily life begins to break down with it. Most people think water shortages only happen in remote deserts or developing countries. But large cities in the United States have already dealt with dangerously low reservoir levels, overloaded infrastructure, and emergency conservation measures. In some places, residents were told not to water lawns. In others, people were asked to limit showers, avoid washing cars, or reduce basic household use. Entire communities began realizing that something they had always taken for granted was no longer guaranteed. And the problem isn't caused by just one thing. Population growth continues increasing demand year after year. Older infrastructure is aging faster than cities can repair it. Drought conditions are becoming more common in certain regions. Energy costs are rising, and modern households consume far more water than many people realize. Think about how dependent the average home is on water systems. Cooking, cleaning, showers, toilets, laundry, dishwashers, heating systems, refrigerators, water filtration systems, even basic sanitation completely depends on constant water pressure and reliable treatment facilities. The moment that system becomes unstable, the effects spread quickly. And here's something many people never consider. Water systems also depend heavily on electricity. Pumping stations require continuous power. Water treatment plants rely on electrical equipment. Pressure systems depend on automated controls and distribution networks. So during major blackouts, storms, or infrastructure failures, water service itself can become unreliable. That's why many emergency management agencies recommend households keep stored drinking water available at all times. Not because society is collapsing, but because modern infrastructure is more interconnected than most people realize. The real issue isn't just drought. It's dependency. Most cities operate on systems designed decades ago for populations and consumption levels that no longer exist today. At the same time, demand continues growing while maintenance becomes more expensive and complicated. And when shortages begin, people often react emotionally. Stores sell out of bottled water within hours. Prices increase. Supply chains become strained. Families suddenly realize they have no backup plan at all. What makes the situation even more complicated is that many people assume bottled water is the only solution. But relying entirely on store-bought water during emergencies creates another problem: availability. If transportation slows down, shelves empty quickly. That's why more homeowners have started exploring simple preparedness strategies long before emergencies happen. Not extreme survival setups, just practical planning. Basic water storage containers, small emergency reserves, rainwater collection systems in some areas, portable filtration systems, backup power for pumps and wells, and increasingly interest in off-grid water technologies. The growing popularity of self-sufficiency isn't necessarily about fear. In many cases, it's about reducing vulnerability. People are beginning to understand how dependent daily life has become on centralized systems working perfectly all the time. And history shows that even advanced infrastructure can experience serious failures. In some cities, aging pipes leak massive amounts of treated water every single day before it even reaches homes. In others, treatment facilities struggle during extreme weather conditions. Some regions face long-term drought concerns that continue getting worse year after year. At the same time, utility costs continue rising. So now many homeowners are thinking differently about water, in the same way people have started thinking differently about electricity. Not necessarily abandoning public systems completely, but creating backup options. That's an important distinction. Most people exploring emergency water storage or alternative water systems are not trying to disconnect from society. They simply want more resilience during unexpected situations. And in many ways, that mindset is becoming increasingly common. Storms are becoming more disruptive. Infrastructure repairs take longer. Power outages affect larger areas. Supply chains remain vulnerable. And people are realizing how quickly basic resources can become difficult to access. Even something as simple as a broken water main can suddenly leave thousands of homes without safe running water for days. And when that happens, daily life changes immediately. Restaurants close, Schools shut down, businesses slow operations, families scramble for supplies, people begin rationing water inside their own homes. The modern city works because invisible systems constantly operate in the background. But when those systems become stressed, even temporarily, the illusion of permanence disappears very quickly. That's why conversations around water independence, emergency storage, and alternative water technologies have become much more common over the past few years. Not because people expect disaster every day, but because many families are starting to recognize the value of preparation before problems happen instead of after. And sometimes, even small changes can make a meaningful difference. Understanding household water usage, keeping a small emergency reserve, learning basic filtration options, reducing unnecessary waste, having backup supplies available during outages. These are practical steps, not extreme ones, because when cities face water shortages, the biggest challenge often isn't panic itself. It's how unprepared most people are for even short-term disruptions. The good news is that awareness is growing. More homeowners are learning how water systems work. More families are thinking about emergency planning. And more people are realizing that modern convenience depends on infrastructure that requires constant maintenance, energy, and stability to function properly. Water feels unlimited when everything works normally. But the moment those systems become strained, people quickly discover how essential reliable access to clean water really is. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to the channel for more videos about off-grid systems, preparedness, water security, and alternative technologies. And if you want to explore additional resources related to emergency water storage and backup systems, there are some useful materials linked in the description below.